Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bet Right Sports Betting Podcast presented by the Six Pack Coverage Media Network. It's your host, Jeff Farrell, here with my co-host, Andrew Tanzi. It's been a minute since we've been on the mic. It's been about 2.5 months since our Super Bowl preview episode. We have missed everyone dearly. Hope everyone out there has been doing well. Rue, how you been?
Good, man. I mean, it feels great to be back on the mic. I didn't realize how much I missed it. Like the end of the
Yeah.
NFL season, it's like such a grind. But now that it was a lot of anticipation today getting ready for the podcast. So it's good to be back.
Yes. So if you have not been following us on Twitter, did not see our posts today, probably tell by the preview, the title of the podcast that you're listening to, this is going to be an NBA playoff preview pod. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over all of the round one matchups. We're going to talk about our favorite series bets, future bets, maybe give some prop thoughts along the way. Kind of who we'll be targeting in certain matchups. And then once we break down each series, then we'll go kind of like big picture, zoom out a little bit, talk about how we see each conference playing out and any like title future stuff like that. So as always, follow us on Twitter for the latest info. Just a quick note, our NFL podcast will be out in a few months. I think after the NFL draft, maybe like late June, once we get kind of like everything's like cemented after the draft, we get all the win totals, the season long player props. We're going to try and do maybe one podcast per week, kind of break down any major news that's going on in the league and really focus on one division so we can really dive in. Like week one, we do the NFC East, go through all the teams, give out all our bets in that division. Then week two, we'll pick a new division to focus on. So that's kind of the plan for the NFL. But for right now, we're going to focus on the NBA. Rue, anything to add before we jump into the NBA? Did I miss anything?
No, and we will be back, every round we'll do in the NBA. Just stay tuned, follow us on Twitter. We'll keep everyone updated because obviously all these first round series might not be wrapped up next week. Maybe we'll do another one next week, as there's a few games kick off in these series, any updates on anything, or we'll be back for the next round. But, we're going to be here. We're going to be here for the NBA one way or another.
Yes, and we are still posting our NBA play of the day. We have one tonight on DeJounte Murray, so hopefully he comes through for us. And just so everyone knows, we're recording this on Wednesday night around 7 p.m. Eastern time. So we currently do not know who the 8 seed is going to be for each conference. But we felt like, getting the Nets locked into the 7 seed was really the important one. I don't think either of us are really looking to bet the 8 seeds to upset anyone. So just so everyone knows, when we go through each series, that's where we're at right now. If something changes, we will not know about it. So with that, let's dive into our first series. Let's start in the Eastern Conference here. We're starting the 1-8 matchups. We have Miami Heat as the 1 seed in the East. They will be playing either the Hawks, Hornets, or the Cavs. So obviously, we don't know who it's going to be. Do you see any of these potential matchups giving the Heat problems? And like, which one would you give the best chance of maybe upsetting the Heat, or at least giving them the series out of the 3 teams that we have?
Honestly, I don't see it happening. But if I were to pick a team, it would honestly probably be the Hornets.
Really?
The Heat let up. The Heat are like a high variance team. They make a ton of threes. They let up a ton of threes. So I feel like the Hornets are that team that could get hot from 3 and pull off an upset against the Heat, more so than the Cavs. To me, are just the Cavs offense is just brutal right now. Their defense is struggling without Jared Allen. We'll see if they get him back for the playing game on Friday. But so I would probably go the Hornets. I did place a bet on them to make the playoffs today at plus 630. I felt like that was a ton more value than betting them to beat the Hawks and then beat the Cavs, who I honestly think the Hornets should be slight favorites against the Cavs if it comes to that. So plus 630 to me. I wasn't going to bet them against the Hawks, but when I saw that number, just felt like too good a value to pass up.
Well, when people are listening to this on Thursday morning and the Hornets have lost by 40 points, they can laugh at you. So we'll see how that turns out. But yeah, I'm with you. I thought that price was just crazy on the Hornets. So we'll see if they can come around tonight. But yeah, honestly, whether the Hornets or the Hawks wins, I think that they're going to beat the Cavs. I think they're just kind of done at this point. There's only so many injuries they can sustain. Sexton goes down, Rubio, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley's in and out of the lineup. That's just only so much they can take. But I'm with you. I don't really see any of these potential 3 opponents giving the Heat too much credit. I'll probably be looking like a series under 5.5 total games here. Like I think the Bucks Bulls, we found one at like minus 150. I think if you get a price similar to that, I might take something like that against the Heat. I think the Heat went 10-4 against these three teams combined in the regular season. Like we've already mentioned, they're all kind of injured. Jared Allen, Gordon Hayward, John Collins, all been out of the lineup, and not really sure if any of them are going to be back. And the Heat should be fully rested and ready to go. So that's probably how I would look at this one, but I don't think I'm going to have too much on this series.
So it's kind of weird in the NBA. I find myself more so than the NFL betting on something I think there's value on as opposed to something I think is going to happen. Like, do I necessarily think the Hornets win tonight? No, but there was too much value on that number for me to pass up. And I feel like there's so much line movement in these lines with teams to win the conference and teams to win the championship and stuff. I feel like I find myself placing bets in some cases based on value as opposed to necessarily how I think it's going to play out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a smart way to do it, especially if you think the value's there. I mean, if it's plus 630 in the market and you think it should be plus 450, I mean, over the long term, I think you're going to make money if you do it that way.
Yeah.
All right. Anything left to say on this series?
Nope.
All right, let's jump over to the 7-2 matchup, the big kahuna of the first round games. The Brooklyn Nets taking on the Boston Celtics. Celtics are the 2 seed and will have home court advantage. Obviously, this is by far the most compelling series in the first round. Celtics have basically been the best team in the league since January 1st. There was kind of rumors like, do they need to break up Tatum and Brown? What's going on with this team early in the season? That everything started clicking. They have a top 3 defense. Their offense has been great. Tatum's really taken that next step forward. And the Nets, obviously, we know they've been kind of all over the place. The ceiling is still there with 2 of the top 10 players in the NBA and KD and Kyrie, but like, do they have enough depth to get it done? Injury notes, Ben Simmons. I mean, I don't think at this point you can ever count on him to play another game again. I don't think we need to speak his name on this podcast. Just wanted to mention it out there because I keep hearing people saying, oh, if he comes back for this game, he's not coming back. Time Lord Robert Williams for the Celtics is likely going to be out for this series as well. There's a chance he could come back if it goes late in the series, but it sounds like he probably needs another week or two. So right now we have the Celtics around minus 140, minus 150 in some places to win the series. I know this is getting bet out a little bit. Did you take a piece of the Celtics early, or do you think this number is getting a little bit out of hand and it's almost time to come back on the Brooklyn Nets at a big plus money underdog?
Yeah, so I bet the Celtics right at the open. I got them at minus 110 to win the series. That number obviously didn't last too long. And it's not, I'm not going to sit here and say the Celtics are absolutely going to win this series. I just, in my mind, made them at least like minus 140, minus 150 favorites. So another case where I saw pretty good value on the number. To what you just said about Robert Williams, I think that in this matchup specifically, I think he's a huge loss in the pick and roll defense.
Yeah.
Because now you're going to end up having like Al Horford and Daniel Tice be coming up and trying to defend these pick and rolls, which is obviously a huge drop off from where Robert Williams was defensively. Simmons, I know we're not going to spend too much time on him. Honestly, if he comes back and plays 20 to 25 minutes, I think it makes a massive difference in the series. I as ridiculous as it is to say, as much as I can't stand the guy, like him. I mean,
you just don't know what version you're even getting.
I get it, I mean, but like the Nets' second unit, when either Durant or Kyrie is off the floor, that second unit is just brutal. And to have another guy like Simmons, you can come in there and play tough defense. I mean, you can't have these lineups where you have Kyrie, Patty Mills, and Seth Curry on the floor at the same time.
They're going to get torched.
Like, it's a defensive nightmare. So having Simmons out there from a defensive perspective, and that's really what you're most concerned about is with this Nets team is the defense. And, they looked pretty good last night. Durant had a great defensive game, but, we'll see how it plays against a much better team. I didn't come out of that game against the Cavs and think more of the Nets than I already did. I mean, when you look at it from a high level perspective, you had Kyrie and Durant play great all around games. You had 20 points from Bruce Brown, and they really
count on that every night.
And they only won by single digits against the Cavs.
Yeah.
So, and if you're watching the game, they're running the same play every single time. Like towards the end of that game, it was a pick and roll, give it to Bruce Brown in the middle of the lane. He can either take a floater, dump it off, or oop it to Nick Claxton. The Cavs just couldn't adjust. So the Celtics, obviously, they've been the best defensive team in the league. It's going to be a much tougher matchup for the Nets here. So, I do like the Celtics. I think this is a huge series for Tatum and Brown. And I just think right now the Celtics are the better all around team. And, if the Nets win, it's going to be Kyrie and KD playing, max level every single game, which
they're going to have to. They have no choice.
It's possible. It's certainly possible. And, you could argue in this series, maybe Kyrie sitting out half the season is, he's got fresher legs than everyone at this point.
Yeah.
So, so I'm riding with the Celtics here, but this is another one where if you're big on the Nets, maybe you wait until they drop a game and you get better value on them. You would get better value on them to win the conference, win the championship, win the series. So this is another one that you could kind of wait out. And same thing with the Celtics, honestly. Who knows which way game one's going to go. So
yeah, this whole series price just kind of like has my head in a pretzel. Like I'm looking at it like to win the conference. So these two teams have the exact same path because they obviously have to go through each other. Then they're likely going to see the Bucks and then either the Heat, Sixers, or Raptors. Exact same path. The Nets are plus 350 to win the East. The Celtics are plus 425, but the Celtics are minus 145 to win this series. How does that, like, how can the Nets be 75 points more likely to win the conference, but they're an underdog in the series by 30 points? It doesn't add up. It's like my brain is like, there has to be value somewhere. I don't know where it is. It's just like, it's confusing to me. I feel like it's getting to the point where I'm thinking about betting the Nets just because like I see a plus 130 now. Like I don't think there's that much separating the teams. You're still getting Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving as pretty big underdogs. Or honestly, I might just play the underdog in like every game. Like I feel like every game is going to be pretty close. You take the Nets like plus 4.5 in game one. I feel like that's pretty solid. I don't know. This one has me very confused.
And I know we were waiting on a line. It's weird. Not all the books are posting on this year for the total games in the series. So the most of the books had you could bet the exact games, but not necessarily the over under on the amount of games. They had them posted for a couple earlier. Did not have this one yet. Let's take a quick peek. I know MGM, I think, is where we found them, right?
Yeah, MGM was the one that was posting them for the majority of games. This one was not posted earlier. It is still not posted now.
All right, but that's something to keep an eye on. If there's a decent number at like 5, what would you take an over 5.5? What would be your top dollar price you'd be willing to pay for an over 5.5 in this series?
Probably like minus 180. I think it's pretty likely it's going 6 or 7 games. I just don't know if we're going to get a great price on it. Like when I calculated it earlier on FanDuel, just using the exact games, we were at like minus 210, minus 215. Like I don't think I'd pay that.
Yeah, it's tough because I can't imagine a price being lower than minus 200 just based on a team only winning one game in this series. So yeah, you're probably gonna have to pay for a game 7 if you want.
Yeah, you could just take the series to go 7 at like plus 180, plus 190.
Yeah. So
maybe that's how it goes.
Yeah.
All right. Anything left to say on this one?
No, this is gonna be a fun one though.
Yes, sit back and watch this one for sure. All right, moving on to the 6-3 matchup in the East. We have the Chicago Bulls against the Milwaukee Bucks. Bucks will have home court. They are around minus 1,000 to win the series. They are minus 10 in game 1. Obviously, two teams going, I guess in kind of opposite directions. The Bulls started off pretty hot. They were the 1 seed in the East for quite a bit. And then in the last month or two of the season, they've really been struggling. It kind of seems like Zach LaVine's beat up. He needs something. He needs a month off. He needs to heal up. It feels like if DeMar DeRozan isn't scoring 40 points and just carrying them, they really don't stand a chance. And like, I'm trying to figure out how they're going to stop Giannis in the series, let alone Middleton and Drew Holiday. So I just think the Bucks have too good of a matchup here. I have a little bit of concerns on the Bucks long-term. Like, I don't love their defense this season. I think that they've certainly taken a step back from last year, but I don't think that's going to be an issue at all in this series. I think the Bucks are going to win this one pretty handily. What do you have here?
Yeah, so the story with the Bulls all season is the Bulls suck against top teams. The Bucks beat them in all 4 matchups this season. And like you said, the Bucks' biggest issue right now is getting annihilated by the three-pointer. Chicago attempts the fewest three-pointers in the league. They really don't have any outside threats. Obviously, they're missing Lonzo Ball, so it's pretty much Zach LaVine and not much else from the outside. So I think from an offensive perspective, it's not a good matchup for Chicago. Yeah, it's Bucks and 4 or 5 for me, and I know we both took the under 5.5 games for this one at -150, which I think is a pretty great price to pay for that.
Yeah, we found that on MGM, especially if you compare that. I mean, they have Bucks -2.5 games right now on FanDuel and a couple other books around like -180, -190. So getting under 5.5 games at -150, like that's crazy good value. Not only are you getting the Bucks to win in 4 or 5 games, by some off chance, the 1% outcome where the Bulls win in 4 or 5, you still cash that ticket. So I just thought that price was crazy. We both got that on MGM. And yeah, that's how I would play this series.
I do have a series. Are we doing player props now? Or are we doing that later?
Yeah, this is the first game I had one, so I was
Okay.
going to say the same thing. Yeah, go ahead. What do you got?
All right, so I have DeMar DeRozan over 25.9 points per game. That's on DraftKings. Full disclosure, we are not able to bet most of these on DraftKings because we're capped
Some
at
of them
about
we can.
some we can, some we can't. So
Others we can't.
this particular one I was capped at $6. So I'm just giving
Big
this out for the
investment here.
podcast. Yes. This number's 2 points lower than DeMar's season average, which was a little confusing to me. He's probably going to play more minutes. In 4 games versus the Bucks this season, he averaged 31.3 points, including a 35 and 40-point game. So, if the Bulls have any chance here, it's going to be on DeRozan's back, taking 20-plus shots per game. So, DeMar over 25.9 points per game on DraftKings would be my favorite prop for this series.
Sounds really good. I'm going to go put $6 on that. It's a good breakdown. I have 2 props in this one. They're basically the exact same one. So we do have game 1 lines up on FanDuel. So I took that. And then I also found basically the same one for the series. But I'm looking at Jrue Holiday assists. He is at 7.5 for game 1. I like the over at -110 on FanDuel. And then they also have the series long assists per game prop on DraftKings, which is at 7.3. So if you average 7.4 or better over the course of the entire series, you cash that. I really like this number for Holiday on assists. He finished the season with games of 9, 8, 13, 9, 4, 10, 10 assist games. So over the final 7 games, cash the over on 6 of them. That 113 assist game was against the same Bulls team, and those numbers were on 15.1 potential assists per game over that span. And I just looked back at last season in the playoffs. Jrue averaged over 9 assists per game. He was 15 and 8 to the over on this line. The Bulls defense has been struggling for most of the season. We just said we love the matchup for Giannis. We think he's going to go off. So I think this is a good spot to take Jrue Holiday. I thought his assist total was a little bit low at 7.5.
All right, I like it.
All right. Anything left to say on this one? Are we ready to bounce on over to the 4-5?
Let's do it. Our hometown boys.
All right. The Toronto Raptors coming in to face our Philadelphia 76ers. Sixers are the 4 seed and are around -180 to win the series. Sixers are like -4, -4.5 in game 1. Yeah, the Raptors have kind of moved their way up. They were in the play-in tournament for a little bit, played their way all the way up to the 5 seed. What do we think here? Do you have a strong conviction here on how our Sixers are going to do? I know we obviously are not quite as confident as we may have been the day that they got James Harden. The team has been struggling a little bit as of late. Do you think they can right the ship and advance past the Raptors here?
Oh, man, where do we start with this team? I mean, first go to the Raptors. I mean, this team, despite battling injuries down the stretch of the season, they were great, top 2 in defensive rating over the last 15 games. They're almost like the anti-Bulls where they, all season they played really well against good teams and terrible against like teams under 500. So, they tend to play up and down to their opponent. The Raptors, anytime you play them, it's going to be a dogfight. This is going to be a competitive series. To me, this series is more of a toss-up. So I think the value is with the Raptors right now. I'm going to wait till after game 1. I think the Sixers can take game 1 in Philly, and then I think we're going to get a great number on the Raptors, and I might come back on it, whether that's taking +1.5 games, +2.5 games, or just taking them straight up to win the series. So I'm going to take my chances there. As a Sixers fan, I can say with confidence, I would not touch the Sixers at the current number. I just think there's absolutely no value on it. When the James Harden came over, it was, the thought was that we were going to have someone else down the stretch of games that could take some pressure off Embiid, make some shots. Well, all James Harden's done since he got here in the guts of the game is turn the ball over, airball threes, brick threes, and it hasn't worked out like anyone expected.
We miss Seth Curry.
Yes, we miss Seth Curry, and it just seems like in these clutch spots in games, it's just Embiid double teaming or getting double teamed and taking fadeaway shots. And so, as good as Embiid's been, the Sixers lost to they got blown out by Brooklyn. They lost to these Raptors twice in the last couple months. They lost to the Bucks, so they really failed almost every test since Harden got
Nuggets,
here. So
yeah.
Yeah, Nuggets was another one. So it's really tough for me to go into the series and feel confident in the Sixers. But yeah, and then I don't think you mentioned this, but no Thibault in Toronto definitely hurts.
Yes, yeah, good call.
He's the best matchup for Siakam by far. So that one definitely hurts going to Toronto.
Yeah, so I'm kind of with you here. I like that strategy of waiting till after game one. Obviously, the Raptors could come in and steal game one, and then that whole plan's kind of ruined. But I'm with you. I think that the play here has got to be Raptors or nothing. I took them plus 1.5 games on the open. It was like minus 130. Right now, it's up to like minus 150, minus 155. I don't know if I love it as much there. But I just also think the Raptors have such a huge coaching mismatch. I mean, outside of maybe like Spoelstra and Ty Lue, like there's no one I'd really want in a 7-game playoff series than Nick Nurse. I think the deeper this series goes, the more adjustments he's going to have, and adjustments and, game planning on the fly is not something that we can say Doc Rivers has excelled at in any way, shape, or form since he's gotten here. So I think as the series goes on, that's really going to play itself out. I don't necessarily love the Raptors long term. I've had concerns about their depth all season. I mean, they basically have like 4 of the top 10 guys in minutes played per game this season. Nick Nurse has played their starters insane minutes all season. So I think they're probably going to come out a little bit short and break down eventually, but I think they will have enough juice here for this first round series. And I think it's going to be, like you said, it's going to be a dogfight. And I don't really think the Sixers are a team that I see winning a dogfight. Unfortunately, outside of Embiid, they don't really have many dogs on the roster, as you said earlier today.
Yeah, so that was going to be my last point is, the dogness level of the Sixers, and that's DAWG. We just don't, like, you look at some of these other playoff teams, everyone's got just that, either 1 or 2 guys. It's just
Marcus Smart, dog. Jimmy Butler,
gritty will, in your face type of guy will do anything it takes to win a game. The Sixers don't have it, as good as Embiid is, it takes a couple early foul calls not going his way, a couple, a cold start, and he kind of, mentally gets out of the game. But
I mean, you could just see him and Harden complaining to the officials the first time there's a foul that isn't called. I mean, their head's already halfway out of the game because they didn't get a foul call. Like, it's just,
yes. So by no means am I counting the Sixers out of this series. Well, I'd be surprised if they win. No, not at all. I just haven't seen anything enough to lay money on. And to your point about Nick Nurse playing starters more than anyone, that's true. But at the same time, you had OG Anunoby missed a ton of time. Like he didn't play much.
He's expected to be back, right?
Yeah, as far as I know. And then Fred VanVleet missed a ton of games down the stretch. Gary Trent missed some games. So, I know it was with injuries. They weren't necessarily just resting, but they weren't necessarily playing 40 minutes a night either. So, and the Sixers did lose 2 games to this Raptors team, like I said, the last couple months of the season with no Fred VanVleet or OG Anunoby playing. So does not bode well heading into the series.
Yeah, I think one of those games was like 175 total points or something. I mean, it was what we're describing. It was a dogfight. It was ugly, and the Raptors won. Yeah. Any props for you in this series?
Yeah, so I have a few here. Siakam, more points than James Harden. So that was total points scored in the series on DraftKings. And this to me is just, it was at 135 when I bet it. I think it went up to minus 150 since then, but I would probably still take it. This to me, Harden is just, like we said, I think over the last stretch of the season, 5 games or so, he had 1 more field goal made than total turnover. So he just, he's just not scoring the way we expected when he got here. And Siakam, he's going to get you 20 to 25 a night. And like we already said, no Thibault in Toronto should open things up more for him. So love that. Embiid over 29 points per game. That line is an absolute joke to me. His opening points line for the first game is 33.5. So I don't know how his series line
how does that make sense?
Is 29 points per game. So I love that. And then my last one is Tyrese Maxey over 1.8 3-pointers made per game. So over the last 20 games, he's averaging 2.4 made 3-pointers per game. And he's just improved this part of his game drastically, shooting well into 40% from 3. So I think the opportunities will be there for Maxey to stay hot from 3.
Okay. I like all of them.
All those are on DraftKings.
All right, couple props for me for game one. I like Fred VanVleet over 3.5 made threes. You can get this on FanDuel at plus 150 right now. Look, it's obviously a high line. Hitting 4 3-pointers in a game is not easy, but I just think the value at plus 150 is too good to pass up. He averaged 3.7 made threes per game for the season. Last few games of the year, 2 for 12 from three, 4 of 11, 5 of 16, 2 of 7. Last game he played against the Sixers, this was a couple months ago, but he did go 6 of 11. So, I mean, VanVleet's a guy we know he's going to chuck threes. If you're going to give me 11 or 12 attempts and you're going to be plus 150 odds on him to make 4 of them, I just have to take that all day. And then I also found a very interesting line. This is another one where we were only able, or at least I was only able to bet $5 or $6 on it. So it's potentially worthless for me, but hopefully some of you out there can cash it in my honor. Fred VanVleet to make the most 3-pointers in the series. This is minus 280 on FanDuel. It's minus 140 on DraftKings. So that just kind of shows you the value. Yeah, VanVleet averaged 3.7 made threes per game, like I said, per game this year. Second in the league behind only Steph Curry. And the only other one in this series who was even in the same ballpark as VanVleet was Gary Trent, who made 3 per game. So I just thought the value was pretty great there, especially when you compare it to the FanDuel
Yeah,
odds.
that's crazy discrepancy there.
Yeah, hopefully someone can get some more money than $6 on that and have some fun.
Yeah.
Anything left to say?
Nope.
All right, should we jump over to the Western Conference, or do we want to do our Eastern? All right, jump over to the Western Conference.
Yeah, West, and then we'll do a full overview.
Okay, so Western Conference, let's go to the 8-1 matchup. Again, we don't know who the exact matchup is going to be. It's going to be one of the Spurs, Pelicans, or Clippers taking on the number 1 seed, best team in the league, Phoenix Suns. For me, I think in terms of matchups, like I don't think the Spurs or Pelicans are even in the same zip code as the Suns. I would honestly bet the Suns to sweep either one of them. I think they're just head and shoulders above both those teams. If they get the Clippers, I think it's a little more interesting. Obviously, we still have the rumors every other day about Kawhi Leonard. Could he possibly come back? Is he close? Like, I don't really see Kawhi coming back, but even without Kawhi, I still think the Clippers could be a little bit feisty in that series. I think that's the team that gives the Suns at least makes them sweat a little bit. Maybe the Clippers steal a game or so. Maybe a couple games come down to the wire. I think they really make the Suns fight for it. So I think the Clippers are definitely the toughest matchup. I don't think any of these teams are beating the Suns. The Suns are by far and away my best team in the Western Conference. So that's kind of how I see it breaking down. Do you have any thoughts on their potential matchups and how each one would play out?
Yeah, so I was really mad the Clippers lost last night, and I think
very mad.
I think they were the better team in that game, and I was ready to bet them to beat Memphis. I think they could give the Suns a run for their money. Not factoring in any potential Kawhi return. I feel like if Kawhi returns, there's going to be no build up to it. I'm just going to get an update one day. Kawhi Leonard will be playing tonight. Yeah,
as if it was expected the whole time.
Yeah, the Clippers are, they shoot the ball really well. They play good defense. They're almost, to me, like a little toned down version of the Suns. Like they play that same type of style of basketball. The Suns clearly a better team. I could easily see the Clippers winning a couple games against the Suns, getting hot from 3. If you gave me like a good line on them, maybe plus 2.5, plus 1.5 games, I would consider it. I do expect them to make it out against whoever wins tonight's game, the Pelicans or Spurs. And like you said, the Spurs and Pelicans to me aren't even don't stand any chance against the Suns. I would be with you betting them to sweep, and maybe we would get a good number on under 5.5 games in that, like we are with the Bucks. So so Clippers, maybe if we do a podcast that next week, that's one we can talk about, because the Clippers really are an interesting team to me. I was ready to put I really wanted them in that other bracket starting against Memphis, and I was ready to get a few futures bets on them. So I tried on DraftKings yesterday before the game to bet. You can bet like the conference final matchup, and I tried to bet Clippers versus Suns, and I was only able to get $1 on it. Luckily, thank you DraftKings for limiting me, or else I would have put more on it. But so I am pretty high on this Clippers team.
Does that bet lose, or does it just void? Because it's not like you didn't.
No, you lose because it's not the conference final.
I guess, but it's not necessarily because like the team lost. It just can't be in the bracket.
They did lose though.
Yeah, but they're not out of the playoffs.
But that was why there was more value on it.
I guess.
Yeah. So
dumb bet by you.
Yeah.
So would you think about if you found like the Clippers plus 2.5 games? Like, what price would you bet that at against the Suns for basically
Plus
the Clippers to make it a 6-game
games.
series?
I would take that like minus 175 or better.
Really? You're that confident they win too?
I feel pretty confident the Clippers could win 2 games against the Suns.
Okay. Interesting. I'm not as confident. I think they definitely get 1 win. I don't know if they can get 2.
All right.
Any props for you in this one? Not that we have a ton of lines out, but I did have one involving Devin Booker.
All right, go for it.
I have this is another one on DraftKings, of course, because they're the only book that wants to post fun props. And I believe I was able to get a normal size bet on this one. So hopefully, if you guys are also limited out there, you can get one too. Devin Booker to have a higher playoff points per game than Donovan Spida Mitchell. This one is plus 120 on DraftKings. I just honestly didn't really get the price. I felt like these two guys were pretty even. Booker averaged 26.8 points per game. Mitchell averaged 25.9. I feel like Booker really took that next step this season. He was dynamite for them all year long. Mitchell has a little bit of a tough matchup in round 1. We'll talk about that when we get there against Dorian Finney-Smith. If this was priced like minus 110 either way, okay, fine. I can kind of just move on. But if I see plus 120 on Devin Booker, I just thought this price was kind of crazy. I think he's a better player. I would have made this minus 110. So getting this at plus money, I thought was good value.
Yeah, I guess the plus money is good value. I mean, Clippers could be a tough matchup for him too. Not to say he's not.
It could be, yeah.
Series,
I mean, if he gets the Pelicans or Spurs, he's going to smash them. Yeah, the Clippers would be a little bit tougher of a matchup just because of like the style they play, the slower game. But I mean, if we're also expecting the Suns to go to potentially the finals, he's going to have a lot more matchups, whereas Mitchell may only play 1 or 2 series. So,
yeah.
All right, that is all to say on that one. We will move on to the 7-2 matchup. We have the Minnesota Timberwolves taking on the Memphis Grizzlies. Grizzlies are minus 330 to win the series. They are minus 7 in game 1. Obviously, the Wolves punched their ticket last night on Tuesday by beating the Clippers. These are 2 young up-and-coming teams. The Grizzlies made it to the playoffs last year. I believe they lost to the Jazz. I think they won game 1 and then got swept in 4 straight games. I'm personally not fully sold on this Grizzlies team yet. They had an awesome regular season. I don't want to take anything away from them. They're a really fun team. I see minus 330. Like, that just seems like too much to me. The Wolves really aren't a team that I'm like dying to bet on, but I think this spot just has to be Wolves or pass. I don't necessarily know if the Grizzlies style of game translates to the playoffs. Like, they kind of want to get out and transition, run. Like, I don't know if that really works in the playoffs. So, I mean, like you said, I was dying to bet the Clippers against the Grizzlies in round 1 at a plus money price. So for me, it's Grizzlies or pass. I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but you're giving me like plus 250. Like, that's pretty appealing. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. So to me, I didn't come out of the Wolves game thinking they were a better team than the Clippers, like I already said.
But you do have to give them credit. Like,
I do. Yeah. I definitely
team,
give them credit.
That game got down to the wire and like they were nails. Like, they didn't fold under the pressure.
No, they didn't. Pat Beverly was fantastic defensively down the stretch, and they won despite Cat fouling out and only
their best player did nothing.
Yeah, so. But to that, I don't think Cat is built for the playoffs. Like, I don't think
certainly doesn't look like it.
A full series of getting physical defense again. Like, he had like Robert Covington and Nick Batum playing physical like that's who they were D'ing him up with last night. And he couldn't do anything. I know he only played 24 minutes and stuff, but you're going to be going against, you talk about dogs, the Grizzlies' entire roster. Like, that's their mentality. They have a dog mentality. Dylan Brooks, Steven Adams, Desmond Bane, all these guys. It's just a gritty team that out hustles you in every aspect of the game. We saw it even when Ja Morant was out. This was one of the hottest teams in the league. And this, like you said, it's a tough team to buy into. When you look at the rosters, the Wolves definitely have more talent on the roster, but over the course of an 82-game season, this Memphis team played like, and they graded out as a top 5 team, net rating, offensive rating, defensive. I mean, this played like a top 5 team all season. So, and I don't know if you said Memphis or Wolves, their style doesn't translate to the playoffs, but I think it's more the Wolves don't translate to the playoffs. So
I don't think either one necessarily does. I mean, like I said, I don't really want to bet on the Wolves. I just think the price is just too high for Memphis. I don't think they should be given this much credit.
I think this is like a great team for Memphis to start the playoffs against. Another young team with not much experience. So this is another one where I'm going to hope maybe the Wolves steal game one, and then I can bet Memphis, because right now, yeah, obviously I'm not going to bet the series price. I don't necessarily want to lay 1.5 games in the series. So, right now I'm going to wait and see if the Wolves can steal a game.
Okay, fair enough. Any prop thoughts for you on this one? I did not have much. I don't think we have a ton of lines on this one yet.
Nothing on this one.
Okay. Would you think about looking at Cat under points per game if we get something in like the high 20s? I mean, he was 27.5 last night.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. So if that's where his series line is, like 27, 28, I would have no problem.
25.5. I just saw it on DraftKings.
25.5 for the series. That's borderline. I would lean the under on it, because really all it takes is one game like last night. One game where Steven Adams gets in his head and he scores 10 to 12 points, and then his series average drops a ton. So, yeah.
Could be a look. Could be. Or
Maybe
you just play it game to game. I mean, you could just see how
Yeah.
it comes out in game one. If you don't like what you see, play it under in game two. You'll probably get a similar price on game two. So
Yeah, based on some of the lines, like it seems like the series lines are all lower than the game lines. Like DeRozan was lined at 27.5, but his series, they're all off by a couple points. His series was at 25.
Doesn't make
but it
sense.
doesn't make sense. So yeah, could be a game to game thing. That's a good point.
All right, let's move on to the 6-3 matchup. We have the Denver Nuggets coming in as the 6 seed, taking on the Golden State Warriors, who have dropped down to the 3. Warriors are around minus 250 to win the series. They are minus 5 in game one. Underdog NBA says Steph Curry puts in a full practice on Wednesday, so it sounds like he is trending towards playing. The Nuggets, it sounds like, are not going to have any reinforcements coming. It doesn't sound like Jamal Murray or Michael Porter Jr. are going to make it back, despite that, potentially being an option for several weeks. Doesn't sound like they're coming in together. The Warriors team's obviously a little bit tough to figure out, just because we have, I think, one game this season of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green all playing together. So, we've kind of had bits and pieces here and there. They started off the season looking like one of the best teams in the league. Then they lose Draymond. They kind of go through a stretch of, they're not really playing that well. Their defense is a mess. Jordan Poole needs to play big minutes because Steph gets hurt. So it's kind of hard to figure out. I think if the Warriors can kind of bring it all together here and get everything to click, I mean, they should be just totally outclassing the Nuggets. Obviously, Jokic is an incredible player, does things that are just magnificent to watch on the basketball court. He just doesn't have anyone around him. I mean, he can't do this in the playoffs against the Warriors with freaking Will Barton and Monte Morris and all these stiffs next to him. So for me, I kind of want to watch and see how things go in game one and game two. How does Steph Curry look? Is he a little bit rusty? Like we've kind of talked about in a couple of these series. Maybe they drop a game early because their team's a little bit rusty. They're trying to figure out the rotation. So maybe then it's time to play the Warriors, but pre-flop, I don't think I'm going to have anything here. What do you got?
So I love this Warriors team to make a run in the playoffs. I really do. And I'll lay the 1.5 games in the series once I just get confirmation that Steph's, 100% in.
What's the price at?
I got a line shop. I'm not 100% sure what the price is at right now. But, with or without Steph, and I do expect him to play, I think the Warriors can win this series. And you just kind of, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. It's, it goes under the radar that this Nuggets team, as good as, 48 wins this season, they're missing their second and third best player. It obviously kills the starting lineup, but it kills the depth as well. And it's just so reliant upon one guy. And as silly as it is to say, I almost feel like Thompson and Curry going through these injuries, in a way, not that it helped the Warriors, but it allowed Jordan Poole to really come along this year, play big minutes, and take a huge step forward. So, Steph, Draymond, Klay, they've been playing together for years, so they have their chemistry. So I'm not necessarily concerned that they haven't played together as much this year. But, having that other option in Jordan Poole from outside, this Warriors team is just such a well-rounded team compared to this Nuggets team. So I really like the Warriors to take care of business in this series. And don't forget about All-Star Andrew Wiggins too. That's another option.
all-star my butt.
Yeah.
It also has to be one of, I mean, if you look around the league, like this has to be one of the toughest matchups for Joker to go up against. I mean, Draymond Green was in the lead for defensive player of the year before he got hurt. I think I wrote down Jokic faced the Warriors 4 times this season. Draymond Green missed every single game somehow, but in the prior 3 meetings, he only averaged 23 points per game in the 3 games that he did play against Draymond and never shot higher than 50% from the field. So I think, good team defense, good individual defenders on that team. This has to be one of the worst matchups for Jokic to draw in round 1.
Yeah, Draymond's a dog.
They got a dog.
They got a dog. Kevon Looney's a dog too.
Yeah, he's not a very good dog, but yeah, he can give you something. Anything left to say on this one? I did not have any props or anything for this game. We don't have a ton of lines here because the Steph injury, I don't think they want to post too much until we have confirmation on if he's playing.
Yeah, nothing for me here.
All right, let's move on to the 4-5 game, one with a lot of injury concerns here. The Utah Jazz against the Dallas Mavericks. The 5-seeded Jazz are currently like minus 330 to win the series. They're up to minus 4.5 in game 1. I see you smirking over there. Obviously, the big news here is the Luka Doncic calf injury. No one really knows what's going on. The only official
I know what's going on.
All right. We'll get to you in a second. The only official news we have is that there is no timetable for return. What does that mean? It could mean they're playing Koi and he's going to come out and play game 1 and be okay. It could mean he's out for a month and a half and he's done for the season. Nobody has any idea, and it's pretty impossible to break down this series without knowing. Rue, would you like to take a victory lap on the Jazz here before anything happens in this series and it goes downhill?
No, it's not even a victory lap. I want to come at you personally because you act. I swear to God, we text sometimes and I'll say things and you just act like I'm the biggest idiot on the planet. And you can't see it over text, but it gets me so mad. So we get this information that there's no timetable for return. On Luka on when was it, Monday or whatever?
Yeah.
And I hear calf string, and in my mind, all I'm hearing is Kevin Durant. This is the injury Kevin Durant had right before his Achilles went out. And I hear no timetable for return. I hear Luka in the hospital wearing a boot. So what do? I'm proactive with this information. I go lay a hefty wager on the Jazz at minus 160 to win the series, put a good amount of money on them on the spread in game 1. And Jeff acts like I'm the biggest idiot out there. What are you doing? This could mean anything.
I didn't say you were an idiot.
No, that's how you acted. And here we are a few days later. Here we are a few days later. And what did you say the line for the series is minus 400, minus 350,
minus 330.
So who's the idiot now? That's all I'm going to say.
All I said was we don't know anything yet. He could play game 1, and
that's
then you
fine.
are an idiot because you shouldn't have bet them at minus 160. I'll take the Mavs as an underdog all day in this series. I was dying to bet the Mavs at full strength here.
And what do we do every time? We have the luxury. We get these updates on cue, and we can go to these books and place bets, cash out. So what would I do?
Sometimes, not always.
I can cash out for a profit right now on the bet I made if I wanted to.
Not all books offer cash outs on those.
I already looked. All
right. Well, you got lucky.
Right there.
It's good to be lucky sometimes. Right,
so yeah, like you said, outside of me getting a great number here by being proactive with information and Jeff not doing it, it's pretty tough to break down the series until we get more on Luka.
Okay, so Luka, I mean, the problem is you're not even like, I was going to say like, okay, Luka doesn't play. Like, how does the series play out? But like, I don't even think we're ever going to get an update that like Luka's out for the series. It's just going to be like, he's a game time decision every game. And you're just going to find out like an hour before the game. Oh, he's playing. Oh, he's not playing. So it's like, it's hard to even have a game plan to know what to do. Like,
but even if he does play, like these, like as minuscule as these calf strains sound, like it doesn't sound like a serious injury. We see it in the NFL. And like I said, with KD, these injuries, like these calf strains,
but everyone's totally different.
Injuries.
It could be the most mild calf strain ever. It could be like his leg is about to fall off and he's out for the next 6 months. I get calf strain is a wide range of like.
I get it, but you know,
it's not like he broke his arm and like he's out a set amount of time. Like he could be fine right now.
So would you feel comfortable betting the Mavs for the whole series if Luka plays?
If he's playing, yeah.
Okay.
At these numbers, be all over them, dying to bet the Mavs. I mean, my dream scenario is he's like, game time decision. We get news that he's like kind of ramping up, almost close to playing. They drop game 1, and then we can bet the Mavs at. I mean, you don't even need to bet him the money line. You can bet him plus 1.5 games or something at a crazy number. Like,
well, that would be my game plan right now. If he's in, would be to bet the Mavs plus 1.5 games or whatever, so I can win my Jazz series bet
Getting
and also
greedy.
catch this one. Yeah, what can I say?
Yeah, so it's kind of tough to say, but I mean, just in general, this Utah Jazz team is not one that I am looking to play on at all.
No.
Like I said, I was dying to fade them coming into the postseason. Their playoff history with Quinn Snyder as the coach and this kind of core of players, Gobert and Mitchell, has not been good at all. And they really haven't been playing that well all season. They're a worse version of the team last year. Joe Ingles isn't playing. Mike Conley's a year older. So I don't like the Jazz here, but yeah, obviously if Luka's not playing, they're going to win the series. So
yeah.
All right. Anything left to say on this one? I do not have any props other than the Booker over Mitchell one that I already gave out.
Nope.
All right. We ready to go big picture here and say how we think the conferences are going to play out?
Yes. Let's do
All
it.
right. So in the Eastern Conference, the 1-8 game, the Heat versus the. Do you want to just go game by game, or do you want to just go like who you think is going to win it all?
You just go round by round, like.
All right. So round
moves
1, 8 versus 1. We both have the Heat advancing.
Yeah.
All right. 2-7. You got the Nets or the Celtics.
Celtics.
I haven't decided yet.
Okay.
Haven't decided yet. We'll see. I can see either one. 6-3 Bulls versus Bucks. I think we both have the Bucks.
Yes.
And then the 5-4. I'm going Raptors over
man.
the Sixers.
This one is killing me. God, man, gun to my head, I would take the Raptors. I would.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah.
You said I'm hating on the Sixers.
No, I just think like the Sixers to me, when we get to we won't get into it. Get to the next round and then maybe we'll get into it.
What are we getting into?
Like your Heat versus Sixers series thing.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be a fun one. All right. So next round, we're going to have the Heat playing the winner of the Raptors Sixers. For me, it's going to be the Raptors. I think this is the point where the Raptors depth issues finally start to fold. I think the Heat are I think the Heat can take down the Raptors. I also think they can take down the Sixers. I don't really see either of those teams giving Miami a ton of problems. I'm all over the Heat. If anyone doesn't know, I love the Heat this season. So I'm going to have them advancing over either team there.
Either team, Sixers. I would look at a Sixers or Raptor series like I'm looking versus the Heat, like I'm looking at the Sixers Raptor series. Like I could see it going either way. This Heat team to me, the Heat team to me is such a high variance team. Like as good as they've been, yeah, they got the 1 seed with all these injuries and stuff they went through during the season. Spoelstra's a great coach, but they make a ton of threes. They let up a ton of threes. They turn the ball over a ton, and they force the other team to turn the ball over a ton. Like that to me, like that type of team, like a series like that can go either way.
I disagree. When you have an elite defense, you have a top 5 defense. I think you can just rely on that. Like you said,
but the Raptors have been a top 5 defense over the last couple months of the season.
Yeah, I didn't say the Raptors have a bad defense. I'm talking about the Heat and why I like them.
But I'm saying you said the Raptors or Sixers wouldn't give the Heat any problems. Either you're undervaluing the Raptors and Sixers or you're just overvaluing the Heat, in my opinion.
No, I think everyone else is undervaluing the Heat.
I don't know. I disagree.
This team is built for the playoffs. Like
I disagree. I don't think they
want to grind out games. They want to play good defense. They have an awesome coach who is probably the best in the league. They were 29th in pace and top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. Like that's exactly what you want in a playoff team. They're one of the few teams in the league that can win a game that's like 94-92. Like we said a million times, they have dogs on their team. I think they are built to win in the playoffs.
I don't know. I disagree. You look at okay, maybe the Raptors don't have like a top superstar player, but like the Heat, like Jimmy Butler, he's a great player, but he's not on like the level of some of these other players in the Eastern Conference. He's not on an Embiid level. He's not on a Giannis level or Tatum.
No, they don't have the high-end superstar, but I think Butler and Lowry and all these guys can really elevate their game in the postseason. They have enough postseason experience more than anyone. We've seen Butler in the playoffs take his game to another level. I have no reason to believe he can't do it again.
Yeah, and to be clear, like I don't think this Heat team is a bad team. I just think you personally are overrating the Heat. Like I could see a Raptors Heat or a Sixers Heat game series going to 7 games.
I disagree. Heat in 6 or 5.
Wow,
probably 6.
Yeah.
All right. So what do you have on the other side? Celtics versus Bucks.
I'd go the Bucks. Maybe Robert Williams coming back. Like Robert Williams in that series with Giannis on the interior would be massive. So maybe Robert Williams comes back. It could sway me a little more towards the Celtics. But right now, I would say Bucks.
That's tough. I could really see it going either way. I mean, it's also like, how do the Celtics do against the Nets? What does that series look like? How do they play? I mean, I think we're obviously going to learn a lot between now and then, but yeah, I think that one's, I mean, that's honestly a toss up. I kind of think that the Bucks are going to, I just don't, I don't love the Bucks this year. I don't know if they're going to lose in the second round, but I think they're going to lose at some point. So I would have the Bucks advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals by a tiny margin, but I think that's going to be a really good series.
All right.
Eastern Conference Finals. Who do you have coming out of the East?
I have the Bucks. I don't think I don't think any of these teams on the other side are beating the Bucks in a 7-game series. Heat, Raptors, Sixers, any of these teams, it's not happening.
Miami Heat at plus 475 to win the East is my best bet in the Eastern Conference. I am riding the Heat to the NBA Finals this season. They take down the Bucks, they take down the Celtics, they take down the Nets. Whoever gets to challenge them in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think the Bucks home court, number 1 seed. These other teams have to play through each other. They're going to have to grind out these series. Like I said, I don't see them having as much of a difficult path with the Sixers or the Raptors as you do. So I think they're going to be the healthiest team. They're going to have home court, and I think they're going to beat any of these teams, and the Heat make it to the finals.
Yeah, I'm sure you think the Heat will beat the Bucks in like 5 games too, right?
Oh, look, it's certainly not going to be an easy series. That one's going 6 or 7. It's going to be a rock fight. It's going to be a very good series. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that the Bucks couldn't win. Like, the Bucks are going to be favored in that series. I think the Heat would be a dog to any of those teams. Like, I think they'd be a dog to the Nets and the Celtics too. I would just like to bet them in those series, and that's what I'm going to do. 475. It's my bet.
All
right. Western Conference.
Yeah.
All right, so in the 1-8 game, I am going to have the Suns over likely the Clippers. We'll call it 4-1. Suns for you.
Yeah, I'll take the Suns.
All right, Grizzlies, Timberwolves. This one's more of a toss-up for me than it seemed like it was for you. I'm fine with advancing the Grizzlies, but I'm certainly not betting them in the series. I would bet the Wolves.
Okay, Grizzlies for me.
Okay, 3-6. Think we're both going Warriors over the Nuggets.
Yep.
And then the 4-5 is kind of impossible to say. Like, if you told me Luka was going to play the majority of the series or all of the series, I would advance the Mavericks. If not, I think it's pretty hard to say that they're going to beat them without Luka. So, it kind of just depends on. It's hard to really make a prediction without knowing.
Yeah, and I have the Suns beating either of these teams in the next round pretty handedly.
I am going to, if it's Suns Jazz in round 2, I'm going to bet a lot of money on the Suns to win that series. Might have to lay a game and a half, but
yeah, you would have to lay a game and a half. Definitely.
To get a decent number. Yeah, they're probably going to be like minus 400.
Yeah.
So yeah, second round, I would go Suns over Jazz or Mavericks, likely Jazz because of the Luka injury. In the 2-3, Grizzlies versus Warriors. What do you think that series is? Like, what would you price it at?
Warriors minus 220 probably.
Wow, you think they're that much even without home court?
Yeah, I think so. You look at the experience on that Warriors team versus the Grizzlies team. I think it's, experience matters in the playoffs. And, I think the Grizzlies will get their playoff series win in round 1. And then I think the Warriors are going to send them back. I would probably take the Warriors 4-2.
Okay. I agree with you. I'm just curious on what that series price would be because the Grizzlies are obviously the higher seed with home court. So maybe we would get a discounted price on the Warriors, but I am with you. I think it's going to be Suns Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. How do you see it breaking down?
I really think the Warriors could pull out a victory against the Suns. Now, my prediction would be the Suns to win. But I think if this Warriors team gets rolling in the playoffs, I see no reason this team can't make a run at the finals. I'd be happy to take a plus 1.5 games for the Warriors in that series and for a potential game 7. So, I've been going back and forth whether I want to bet a Warriors either to win the conference or win the finals, but I'm not there yet. We'll see. But yeah, I would take the Suns to win, but I would probably be betting on the Warriors with a game and a half.
What book did you have the conference finalists on?
It was on DraftKings.
Oh, that'll only take like an hour and a half to find.
So
there are 5 million tabs. Oh, conference final. All right. So Warriors versus Suns right now to meet in the conference final. That is crazy.
What is it?
The number itself isn't crazy, but what I'm going to compare it to. So Warriors versus Suns in the Western Conference Finals is plus 240 right now.
What?
Listen to this. Suns versus Grizzlies is plus 245. So DraftKings is basically telling you right now there is as good of a chance that the Warriors make it to the Western Conference Finals as the Grizzlies.
Yeah,
is that wild?
Crazy.
How does that make any sense?
Well, I mean, Golden State's plus 400 to win the conference. Grizzlies are plus 500.
So I mean that series so would that makes me mean that the Warriors are only like minus 150.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that makes me think we would get a really good price on the Warriors. So, all right, I'm kind of looking forward to that series now. Maybe I'll get a really good number on the Warriors.
Yeah, I would love to get that, especially if the Grizzlies like take care of the Wolves because they're just an inexperienced, not great team. I think that would be a great spot.
Yeah, definitely.
For me, I like the Suns to come out of the West. I bet them at plus 120 on FanDuel. I just love this team. I think they've really built on last season. Devin Booker really took that next year leap that we were all hoping he could. And he's one of the elite players in the league, an elite scorer. Obviously, Chris Paul's been awesome. Him and Booker combined have been just absolutely nails in the fourth quarter. I think there's some stats that show that they are by far the best duo in the fourth quarter this whole season. Mikal Bridges has really stepped up his game, become a kind of a reliable secondary scorer. We know he's always been a good defender. So I just really think the Suns are the best team in the West. I think they're going to have an easy path to the conference finals. And when we get there, even if they do face the Warriors, I still think they're going to be minus 170, minus 180 in the series. So grabbing plus 120 now, I think that's just a good bet for me. So I'm going to take them. And I do think it would be a good series against the Warriors, but I think the Suns would ultimately come out in 6 or 7 games. All right. So for the NBA Finals, you would have Bucks versus. Did you go Suns or Warriors? What was your final?
Yeah, Bucks versus Suns. I don't. As much as I hate repeating,
never seen that before.
Yeah, as much as I hate repeating it, it's like a Cavs and Warriors situation again. But I would take the Bucks again, and my only gripe with this team coming in is the defending a 3-pointer. Like they've been great all season when their big three is on the court. If they make it to the finals, I have confidence that they resolve this 3-point issue. So
I mean, it's not just threes though; it's everything. Like they're just,
their
defensive rating as a team just sucks.
Yeah, so their rotations have been bad, and that's ultimately what's leading to the bad threes. It could be because Brook Lopez missed a ton of time, so they weren't in the flow with him. But they from an individual defender standpoint, every guy on this Bucks team is a great defender. So you're going to have, you can play this switch defense on the outside with Booker, and he's always going to be in a tough matchup. And so, if they make it to the NBA Finals, I feel very confident they would have these defensive issues ironed out, and their offense, I have no concerns about whatsoever. So I would take the Bucks again over the Suns.
Okay. For me, it's going to be Heat versus the Suns, and I would take the Heat in that series to end.
Man.
No, sorry, the Suns. The Suns.
Oh,
sorry, no. The Heat are not beating the Suns. No, I would take the Suns comfortably in that series. I think they would win maybe like 4-2. I think that that they're just a step above the Heat. I do not think that would be even that competitive a series. I would comfortably take the Suns. Sorry to scare you there.
All right.
What?
I don't know. It's just crazy to me that you like act like the Heat have zero chance against the Suns, but they're gonna beat the Bucks or Nets or Celtics coming out of the East. Like I don't know.
I think the Suns are the best team in the league. I told you I didn't love the Bucks this year.
I don't have a problem with you saying they win, but it's the way you say they wouldn't even have a problem. As if like you can't tell me the Suns are that much better than the Bucks or something like that. The Heat would be able to beat the Bucks in a 7-game series and then go and just lay dead against the Suns and not stand a chance.
No, look, okay. It's not that they don't stand a chance. I just don't think that they're going to be able to win the series. I would probably have them losing 4-2. They're not getting swept or anything like that. But yeah, I just don't think they have enough gas to go all the way to the finals.
All right.
To win the finals.
All right.
Anything left for you to say here on our round 1 playoff preview in the NBA?
Yeah, so a few things. So one thing
left to say.
All right. So one takeaway for me here is be patient and wait for these numbers and the series numbers right now, the Warriors, the Grizzlies. Like right now, you're not getting great numbers on them. So be patient and wait for the right opportunity. Like we said, maybe the Nuggets steal game one, maybe the Wolves steal game one. You can get a better number. If you like, Raptors, Sixers, where it's kind of a toss-up series, just wait. If you don't love the opening lines, there's going to be opportunities to get these teams. So that would be my one thing. And my other thing is, which we didn't touch on, and I want kind of your opinion on it, is betting certain teams to win the NBA finals versus betting on a finals MVP. So like, the Bucks on looking at FanDuel plus 500 to win the NBA championship. Is it worth just betting Giannis at plus 600 to win finals MVP? Or could you realistically?
No, not that close.
Okay. So not that close, but like what teams where do you think it would be better off betting their star player to win finals MVP as opposed to betting their team to win the championship? Like,
if I was going to bet finals MVP, I'd probably look at some of like the secondary or third options on some of these good teams. Like if I thought the Warriors had a chance to win, I might look at like Klay Thompson at like 40-1, Draymond Green at 55-1. Like I'd rather take them than take Curry at 11-1. If I was looking at the Bucks, like I saw like 100-1 on Chris Middleton. Like I'd rather play that than play Giannis at 5-1. Obviously it's more risky, but I don't think there's that big of a difference between them winning MVP.
All right, but so the Suns, you're on the Suns, they're plus 270 to win the finals, and you're getting good value on either Booker or Chris Paul plus 600 and plus 700. Would you take either one of them?
For me, maybe, no, just because
maybe sorry, go ahead.
No, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, so maybe you all right, so you have $100 to bet on it. Would you maybe go 50 on Suns to win the championship and throw the other 50 on like a Booker or Chris Paul bet at higher odds?
For me, no, just because I personally don't really have a strong lean towards either one of them separating themselves. Like I could see either one of them. I think if it's close, they're going to give it to Chris Paul, but I think Devin Booker's the better player. If you felt strongly about either of those, I could definitely see you going that route. I just personally have a tough time distinguishing who would really separate themselves. If I wanted to bet the Suns, I would just bet them plus 255 or just bet them in each series.
All right, that's fair.
Do you have any
conversation worth having?
Any finals MVP bets that you were looking
at? To me, even though the odds discrepancy isn't huge, like Giannis is winning finals MVP if the Bucks win the championship.
I disagree.
Outside of that, I like you, I would probably, well, you said you wouldn't split it. I would probably put some on Chris Paul to win MVP because I think if the Suns win, I think like you, there would be like Booker would almost have an uphill bat. Like Booker would be starting behind Chris Paul to win MVP in that series. Sure. So Nets, Durant versus Kyrie could go either way. Warriors, we've already seen. No one likes to give Steph Curry the finals MVP.
Yeah. Andre Iguodala.
I could, I wouldn't mind sprinkling someone Jimmy Butler if you think the Heat can win like you. He's plus 1,400 compared to the Heat are plus 950. The only other one I could see in contention for that is Bam, but to me,
I'd see Tyler Hero winning that.
Finals MVP, no way.
I
can't see. I think Butler would be worth a bet if you think the Heat can win.
I don't taking the star play. I just don't feel like there's enough separation between the team just winning themselves.
All right. I think there's some scenarios where it's worth it. Like if you think, like Denver and Jokic is the same exact odds.
Denver is literally impossible for anyone else to win MVP. There's just no chance.
Luka has worse odds to win finals MVP than the Mavs do to win. No, the Mavs are plus 2,700 to win the finals. Luka's plus 2,300 to win MVP. So that doesn't make sense.
He also might not play in the playoffs.
Yeah, he also might not play.
Good bet there. Definitely don't bet Luka.
So, but thought it was a conversation worth having.
Okay.
Donovan Mitchell plus 3,100. Jazz plus 1,900 to win the finals. So.
what are we doing here?
I'm just saying.
And also, don't feel like
there's people out there. Look, well, there's people out there who think these teams can win. There's nothing wrong with that. There's someone in Utah.
There's something. The Jazz cannot win. I have bad news for you if you're listening right now and you think the Jazz can win the finals. They can't win. Okay, bad news. Only other thing I was going to say was don't feel like you have to bet these set futures prices. If you like a team, like don't be afraid to just bet them game to game. You don't need to tie up your money for 3 months and you eliminate the majority of the injury risk. If you like the Celtics to come out of the East, like I don't personally think there's any value on betting them plus whatever they are, like plus 400 right now. Like they're a pretty small favorite against the Nets, and then they're going to be a dog to the Bucks, and then they're going to be around to pick them to the Heat. Like, just bet them in each series. You're going to make more money and not tie up your money for a month and a half if you bet them now. So I mean, don't be afraid to just bet some of these teams game to game or series by series. You don't need to bet them now.
What do you think a Nets Bucks series is? What do you think the line is, or like the odds?
Bucks,
Wait, what did I say? Nets Bucks? No, sorry, I meant Celtics Bucks.
Bucks minus 140.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
I feel like it'd be a little bit higher, but I feel like the Celtics would have to get more credit in the market because that means they would have taken down the Nets, and the Bucks. Yeah. I mean, they would have only beaten the Bulls, so it's not like we're going to think any higher of them.
Yeah, that's true.
But Celtics also have home court. That might even be a little bit shorter than that, honestly. It might even be like Bucks minus 130.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one.
If we get it. All right. Anything for you to say here before we peace out?
Nope.
All right. As always, make sure to check us out on Twitter for all of the latest and greatest things we have going on at BetRightPod. Make sure to smash the like button on YouTube. Give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Share the podcast with a friend, and the YouTube video will be in the description of this podcast. From Jeff and Rue, we are the Bet Right Sports Betting Podcast, because every time you bet with us, you bet right.